I'm very happy to do a little talk today at the end because I think we got to know each other a little bit. I was very impressed with how you all enthusiastically trusted me from the very beginning to throw yourself into this work and accepted what I tried to offer you, took it along, and I'm very grateful for that. I don't like the word pride, but I would like to say that I was very happy to see how you implemented what I tried to give you in the performances. And I hope that you can carry some of it with you. So this is a little bit of a wrap-up to revisit the things that most of you would have heard me say in the course that I gave individually to you. But I want to start with a big question. You should not be afraid of the big questions. That really is, what is it to be an artist? And what is talent? Because that is always the question that we are faced with. And talent is a big word. For me, it is yet just standing at the beginning of a journey. Talent is how it all starts. So for me, talent means potential. There's a potential that for something to grow. The seed is there. It could be an innate ability, an affinity to something. You feel drawn to something. You have a curiosity. You want to find out more about it. A subject or a genre, an art form, a craft. It doesn't matter what it is. And a desire to get involved. And that needs to be nurtured. The earlier, the better, obviously. And so we usually become a bit aware of it at an early age, or sometimes it is discovered from the outside and brought to us because we may not be completely aware of the fact that this world actually exists. That's why teaching is so important. Of course, when you start at an early age, you start at a fairly low level, which is good because you don't have the fear, you can throw yourself into it, and that's how you discover the fun of getting active in it and how that encourages you to move even further with it. So it's really about finding something that resonates within you and then making the bridge for it, for which you need help, especially if it's a high art form. And so you need teachers who nurture you and who inspire you, and you need to find a model that works for you, and a model that makes you want to get involved and makes you want to work hard. And that's when the ambition steps in. And people sometimes ask, what do you think is more important, talent or ambition? And I always say that ambition is a talent. And I call it the hunger. How much do you need of it in order to feel that you become complete? But again, the model has to be there. You have to see the model. So what Anicet just showed us is that this very high art form that in that period started with dance is all about grace. It's all about making the human body graceful. And that means you have to shape it. So that is the creation. You have to take this body that you have and you shape it into something that is higher, that is a higher version of yourself, and you do it for the stage. And if you can do it for the stage, you get closer to this divinity, and then you can bring that back into your own life and hopefully become a better human being. It's often said that the most important thing in life is love, but what that really means is also not quite clear. It's another big word, it's not easy to define, I don't claim to have the answer. But I feel quite strongly when I say that to love means to care. And to care means that you pay attention to the other. And you discover yourself and your ability to give love through the dialogue with the other. And that means paying attention. And as an artist, the greatest thing you can do is to pay attention. And to have this very strong dialogue with the outside world, which is part of what will define who you are. There's a lot of talk today, you just do you, be you. That it can only be possible if you know yourself. And yourself is a creation that happens in a constant dialogue with who you think you are and what the world tells you that you are. And there you have to learn in life to find the right people who have your best interests in mind and who will honestly and with goodwill show you who you really are, and that's how you begin to shape the self. So it is also a creative act. Now, as musicians and performers, we have a great advantage in how we approach life creatively because we are interpreters. So we work with something that already exists, and we create a dialogue with that, and we let this existing work come through us, and we shape it and we filter it in order to express it for the outside world. That is the divine calling of the artist, that you express something that comes through you. And you bring yourself in to some degree, and yet you are really just the vessel. You are the messenger, you're not the message. So there has to be a level of humility to understand that there is this higher thing that is art, and you become the instrument through which it goes. So the ego is really, it's a good idea to put that aside. The ego will get stronger and develop character and strength if you have the humility to let this material speak through you. So humility is really an important thing, and the older I get, the more I understand that. And I also understand that, we talked about this, that there are different levels that you go through as you try to live an artistic life and try to achieve something as an artist. At the beginning is technique. And that is also that humility that your body is pretty much incapable of doing anything until you learn it and acquire it. There is an innate grace that we all have, but again, that needs to be discovered and nurtured and shaped. So technique, and that's why I admire singers of your kind. You are classically trained singers so much because you understand that you have to start with technique. The next level is the creativity, where and that is connected to your intelligence. That means that you understand you have to closely pay attention again to the artwork, to what is there, and how can you shape this through your instrument of the body. And if you bring those two together eventually and you start to master it and you reach a level of ease, that's when the third level comes, and that's the transcendent level. And that's the freedom, and that's what we're all aiming for. That's when you get very close to the divine, which we can never reach. But by creating it and by expressing the divine through music and through poetry and through the art form of performing, we can get closer to it. The magic's already there. All you have to do is find it. Like Michelangelo said, how did you make David? They asked him. I just had to liberate him from this slab of marble. He was already there. And I think that is a healthy approach because it moves away from the ego. You all know the story of Narcissus, who falls in love with his image. But I think it's often misunderstood what that story means. He doesn't fall in love with himself. He falls in love with the image of himself. And that's why he's dying, because that image is not alive, because it doesn't move. Everything has to constantly move. The earth is moving around the sun, we're moving, we're getting older, we age, and we have to continuously have that dialogue with the outside world to shift and shape with it and stay involved with that constant shift as we try to find our place in the world. So the dialogue is important, and the paying attention. So what are we doing up here? The holy ground of the stage, which is elevated. So we become a higher version of the self through grace, which is why this tradition is so beautiful. That's why it's really, really wonderful to study that and understand. Now, you all thought, and I told you this, when you bring in the physical, as I tried to impart on you, I told you all, you will see that the work is so much more difficult than you thought it was, because it's a whole different level that you bring to what you're already doing with your voice. Now imagine how hard they had to work, and how to make it seem completely natural and organic and breathing, like you said. And again, like you expressed, there was nothing stiff about this style. it was flowing, it was breathing. And like I often said to you, when you have a pose, and I always said, hold it, hold it. I never really mean hold it, because that's when it becomes stiff. What it means is that the energy needs to continue to flow right through you, and you send it out, out, out. It comes from somewhere else through you, and you keep sending it out, out. You never just hold it. The audience feels it when it's stiff, and you feel it. And if you become stiff, then everything goes south. So, and that's why the breath, again, is important. I'm not a vocal teacher, but you have all heard me say, you're not breathing, and I can feel that you're not breathing. And if you breathe, the audience will breathe with you. And if the audience breathes, it will be more involved, and it will not get tired. And you don't get tired, because if you don't breathe, you get tired. So you need it for technical support, but as you will find and make the connection between the music and the text, there is always the right reason to breathe. And it's not just so you hold the note. It's because there is a statement that is strong enough to demand the breath. Okay. So I think what we've done in these 2 weeks is find an approach to the detailed work, and to understand that whatever you do on stage needs to be extremely specific. And you all know this from your work with your voice. You have to understand that you have to work on the support, on your breath, on not being stiff in the neck, the chin, the tongue, the mask, the resonance, all the way to the top of your head. That's very detailed work. And even if you don't end up performing in that style that is extremely stylized, the detailed and specific work is still, or should still be there in how you behave through your body on stage. But again, the music and the words tell you pretty much everything if you pay close attention. And they are completely intertwined. You're dealing with some of the greatest works ever created, and you can trust that there is a reason why it was created the way it is. And if you pay attention to it, it will tell you what to do. So I have, as I have in these last years, started to do this kind of work from my own experience as a performer, which was nothing like what you do. I'm not a classical singer at all, but from, again, paying attention to all genres of performing. Developed something that I somewhat gamely call a method, and I have my 10 commandments. So I'm going to go through them for you. Number 1, trust the music and follow the lyrics. The words tell you what to do, and the music tells you how to do it. My favorite opera is, and many people are surprised by this, Capriccio by Strauss, because it is a meta opera that is very analytical, and it goes around the central question of the opera as an art form. Prima le parole, dopo la musica, or prima la musica, dopo le parole. What comes first, the music or the words? In your world, it was dance. Strauss put the answer in the opera at the end. It's very clear that it is the music, and I would agree with him that the music comes and the music brings us to express in words what it is. Do you agree?
I don't, because
you don't.
That's not where I come from. The words come first.
Words come first. Well, but that's okay. I mean, for me, it's a tricky question. I do understand that. But when I see and how we have worked, usually, I mean, in your world, you said the gesture has to come first, right? I often see that you have to first see something before you react to it. And the music announces what it is so you can see it and then react to it. For me, that's the natural flow. And that's, again, also very structured. And we've done a lot of that work. I said, do you hear that? That's it. But you cannot anticipate it. It has to first come through you, and sometimes it's very fast. It has to come through you, boom, reaction. Otherwise, it's forced, and we will not read it because we will not be with you. You have to take us along the way. One of the things that I almost always see in concerts And I'm talking a lot about concerts, because in opera you have the context. In concerts you have to create the context, every single number from nowhere. And I see everyone become the character too soon and too fast. And that's why I say trust the music to do it for you, but let the music come through you and let it emerge. And that goes through the breath, and it goes through the stance that you take. I prefer it when you come from a neutral position, and let us see how it evolves through the music and the breath. And sometimes you don't have much time, but most of the time you actually do. And that moment needs to breathe. And we've done this. And I've showed this to you, that there's often, you know, you take a position and you're completely ready, and then this happens. And as soon as this happens, you've broken the spell, you've broken the energy, the line, you are no longer the character, you become the singer. And you've heard me say, stop singing. I don't want you to sing. You're not singing. You're expressing something in a universe in which everything is music. And if you step out of that and make a stop to become technical, you're losing that. And then the audience will just think, yeah, it's pretty music. But you have to engage them on that other level. I've been to so many concerts where I felt, yeah, it's really pretty, but I can't get there because you're just showing me that you know how to sing. It's not interesting. Unless you have the voice of the millennium, and even then, good luck. You know? So, no, that's my point. For me, it's like, no, that's not enough. Less is more. Number 2, leave out the obvious, but exaggerate the essential. That sounds very easy, but I've often said, we, the audience, we don't mind to see you move. But that doesn't mean frantically moving around. It means that every movement has to have a clear purpose that we can recognize, which is when style comes in. Even in this very naturalistic approach that I have, it's still stylized because it needs to read. So that's also why I say there can never be anything casual on stage. That's why you have to have a purpose with every single moment. The hardest thing to do on stage, many actors will tell you, is to just walk. And just to walk from here to there as a singer, you know how bizarre it is when you have to make your first entrance to the center. How the hell do you do this? And you know you're being judged from the moment you're stepping out into the light. They are already judging you before you sang your first note. So you cannot approach this saying, well, I'm just going to go out there and sing, and once I open my mouth, then I create my world. No, you have to start creating it the moment you come on. And even so, you cannot overblow it. You know, there's singers, they come out like this, and you haven't done anything yet. I mean, that's pop, you know, that's pop. My fans are here, you know, but that's not what we're going for here. So, for me, the easiest approach is to come with a place of focused neutrality, out of which, with the music, it will emerge. By the way, in pop music, when they come out, the music's already playing. You don't have that advantage. Remember that.
Yeah, interesting.
And again, less is more. So one step, I see a lot of you and a lot of singers, there is that inattention because you realize you're getting stiff. When that happens, step out of it. One little step, it will do it for you. And we don't mind. I'd rather have you step just one little step and you're already out of that zone where everything was stiff. So the breath and the body movement can really help you. Use it. Don't be afraid. When you feel locked in, dissolve it. You have to address the elephant in the room. Otherwise it grows, gets bigger. 3, trust yourself. You have to take full charge of each moment, make the specific choices, but you have to also be at peace with the present and be ahead of everything. It's very strange. You have to be completely in the now, which you are creating, and you know how to creating because you know where you're going. So you have the purpose of every step along the way, and you have to trust it. You're well prepared. That's where the technique comes in. But if you have the purpose, it will tell you what to do, and then you don't need to worry about it. I know I need to go from here to there. I know I need to have the breath here. That's preparation. And of course, it should still appear completely spontaneous. So commit to it, because if you don't, there are two extremes that can happen. If you don't trust yourself, you're going to push too hard, or you're going to regress. And then you leave the zone of ease, which is the zone that ideally you should achieve eventually as you master the craft. For me, there's nothing worse from an audience point of view when I see someone up there who's struggling. It's extremely painful. And I've seen it so many times, and it really hurts. I can't enjoy it at all, and neither can the performer, obviously. It's painful, because it reminds me also of how hard this is. So somehow you have to give yourself a license to fail, rather than stiffen up. And that means that you have to be in the present, and accept the present, and shape it with the capacity that you have, and not try to imitate the self that you remember you had. You have to really make it new every time. 4, the stage is your home. Very similar. So make it your home. Own it. You have been given the opportunity of authority. You are in the position of, you are in charge of this. Make us feel that you're comfortable, that this is yours. You are worth it to be on the elevated stage. We're looking up at you. We're already here. We're already celebrating you by the fact that we're here. So I know that you can get sometimes a wave of an audience that is really very much, show me what you got. That's horrible, but it does exist. But you have to really tell yourself in that moment, I have the right to be here. I have the right to be here, and use the breath. Use your breath to remind you that what you are and what you do is you expand your energy. And that's what you do on stage. You expand the energy in a wave that eventually the audience will feel. If you don't expand it, that's when it regresses and everything gets smaller and smaller. You have to shine your light. 5, know thy stage self. Who are you? Why are you here? What are you doing? The eyes. I told you it's the most important tool you have on stage is the eyes. What are you looking at? Where is it? Why are you looking at it? And the distinction between the soft and the hard focus is so important. I don't know why so many teachers seem to tell singers, just look over the heads of the audience. I was like, is there something there? Is there something? Because I don't see it. You need to project what you see so we can see it. If you see it, we will see it. Sometimes you're not looking at anything, then I want to be aware that you're not looking at something or someone, but that you're being introspective. Sometimes the energy goes out, you're looking out at something, and sometimes you allow the audience to watch you as you're looking into yourself. And that often happens to be the lowered gaze. We have now the lighting, you can afford to do what they couldn't do, you can work all angles. Don't be afraid to look down. I love to see that when singers look down. I mean that. But the implication is there. It's just, that's it, already enough. Huge difference. 3 main points. The here and now and me trying to figure something out is a very small circle around you. Very small. I want to feel that this is happening with your eyes. Now, I'm looking at someone or something that's clear out. The future is always now. And what's happening that is that you have to deal with, that happened to you, is behind you, and I want to feel that energy behind you. But those references, the divine is up, that's the future, that's what you're appealing to, that's what you want. In the end, the gestures that you just saw, they are not as artificial as they may appear at all. They read very, very clearly. So take that lesson and see how can you just lessen them enough so they are not completely like this, but the intent is still the same. So take that as an inspiration. That's one that people find quite puzzling, especially musicians. Number 6, if it feels perfect, change it. It's not meant to be perfect. Perfection doesn't exist for the human body. Perfection is a projection. Perfection is something you want to get close to. It's not meant to be perfect, it's meant to be alive. It has to breathe, it has to come through you and accept the present. So aim to be better than your former self. That means there's a process and it moves. And as I said, everything has to always move. So you're moving closer to the light. You will never get there, but by projecting that you are making this path, that's how you are taking some of it to reflect back onto us. That's why we're in the audience and why we love seeing you. 7, surprise us and yourself. Every now and then you have to take a chance. You have to do something, you have to allow yourself to not be, the super trained machine. Really feel your surroundings. Again, pay attention, and now and then you have to react to it. And you may surprise yourself. And it may also not work, but if it doesn't work, you will have learned a lesson. So sometimes you have to take a chance. You have to have the courage to fail without really hurting yourself too much, but you have to have the courage to say, I'm going to try this right now. Now, I am not academically trained. I learned everything on stage by watching and by doing it. And yeah, it's very painful when it doesn't work, because all I had was my instinct, and whatever preparation I had was nothing compared to what you had. So much more than me, you should give yourself that license. I encourage it. 8, be humble. The performance is an offering. As artists, we have to have the humility to be connected to something that is higher, but we are creating the communion between that higher ground and the audience. So you are generous beings. And if the more generous you are, the more will come back. And that's why you cannot create the stiff image of the self. That's where the dialogue comes back in with the outside world. The idea is not, this is who I am. The idea is, this is what I have to offer. You like it? I try to make it even better. You want to see more? Maybe next time will be better. That's the idea. Again, it needs to move. It needs to breathe, and the audience breathes with you, and it's a win-win situation. 9, that's another one. Never give 100%. Now, some of you may think, yeah, you have to give 150%. Bad news for you. 150% does not exist. It's mathematically impossible. So that doesn't work. What you need to do is you need to give the audience the impression that you give everything. And that's not the same. You have to keep some for yourself. And the reason you have to do this is because you have to have a part of yourself needs to still be burning after the performance. That's the little flame from which you can rekindle the fire. So you can be physically exhausted and all that, but you cannot feel depleted. You have to keep that little thing for yourself. Find the tools to shape what you do very clearly and be generous with it. But they always say leave them wanting a little bit more. It shouldn't feel like you're holding back, but you have to know your physical limits and you have to know your emotional limits. And here I would say, try to not give in to the urge to bring your own biography, your own feelings and experiences into your character. One of the parts of the talent of a performer is empathy. And empathy means that you have the ability to create and to understand a character that you are shaping, and it doesn't need to have anything to do with you. And actually it shouldn't. You appear to become that character, but you are not really becoming that character. Because if you do that, you're going to get hurt emotionally, and also you want to try to use a reservoir that at some point may be depleted. You cannot always call upon your personal emotions in order to deliver. It's very dangerous. So really look at it as an outside creation that you, in an almost very technical way, and as you've seen, the approach of the physicality to the performance is as technical as the vocal production. Really look at it as an outside thing. I mean, of course, you may every now and then have a role say, I think I completely understand that character, but it's not you. Hopefully. Because obviously the characters on stage are operating at a very extreme level because it's theater, and sometimes it needs to go higher. But keep yourself out of the game. The ballet teachers say you leave your ego out, you're here to work. So you don't get the emotion of the character on stage. You don't get the pleasure of that emotion, the bliss or the sadness. It's not for you. It's not therapy. What you get is the joy of creating the emotion for the audience. So I've seen performers on stage where they're so engaged, and I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, you're having a great time out there, but I'm not feeling a thing because you're doing all the work for me. So keep yourself safe. Number 10, have fun. I want to see the joy. We want to see someone who enjoys what they're doing. And so you have to accept that fear is part of the job, accept that the stage is your home. Once you come in there, and you know this, you're back in the wings, you're scared shitless, but once you step out there, you're in a whole different world. You dip into this other universe, and this universe is welcoming. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing this. Something has told you that you belong there. And maybe you only belong there on a certain level, maybe only for a certain time in your life. It's perfectly fine. By applying yourself to it and by trying to learn all of this, and to pay attention and to go through this, learning the craft, learning the technique, it's never a waste of time, no matter what you do in your life. What you learn by this is, again, you learn to pay attention. And you connect it to the joy that art can give us. And that will enrich your life no matter what you do. So I applaud that already. So in the end, so that is the joy of the present. And that's what you can take with you onto the stage. Every now and then also relax into it. Like I said, take a chance. And bask in the glory of being in touch with this higher divinity that is music and art. It's an honor to do that. I think that's pretty much it. Any questions? Yes.
Scott, you want to go first?
I just wanted to say that you said something that was really very beautiful. It was about the communion. I think that's very powerful.
And why else do we go to the theater? It is a church, in a way. It is the catharsis that the Greeks talked about. It is the communion, yeah. I mean, you are, in a way, you are like priests.
The other thing was the ego, and the Greeks, they believed there was the humors, right? And ego and whatever.
I don't know about whatever.
Well,
I don't know what to do with whatever. like I said, by the way, when you introduce a song, I mean, I wrote the text for you. If you get a chance to do this again, hopefully next time you'll write it yourself. I did it because I felt, I'm not sure it's going to happen. And some of you did, but I appreciate that you delivered it and you all did really wonderfully. But when you do it, whenever you're asked on stage to do this, please try to avoid the word basically. Well, basically, she's in the woods. No, she's not basically in the woods. She's in the woods. And she's like really sad. No, she's not like really sad. She's really sad. So those two words, they don't belong on stage. They are on stage. You're performing. My ballet teacher used to walk through the class, we did our bar. She said, kids, you're boring me to death. Don't you understand? You're already supposed to be performing. Anyway, yes, so whatever.
Well, do you think that ego today has a different meaning than what it did, let's say, in the time of Monteverdi, when they started writing opera?
Well, we are arguably now facing in a much stronger way with the reflection of the self, and we're more engaged with creating a self that we project through social media, for example. So the awareness of the ego and the constant back and forth in the world, who are we, how are we seen, is arguably stronger because we're also not embedded in clear roles, because we live in a society where you can continuously shapeshift. Right? So I would say yes. I mean, the whole idea, I mean, I just taught a class on the history of the cabaret, and I talked about the 19th century, where the whole idea of the artistic self and the individual and the bohemian and the romantic self that is continuously, reflecting itself really emerged. I'm sure it's much older than that, but it really landed in a much broader spectrum in the 19th century, out of which we have the identity of the artist, which didn't exist before then because it was a craft. Yeah. So the ego got in there. Yes. Did that answer the question to somebody?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So doing the arias, this last 2 weeks with you has been fantastic, and being able to kind of open our eyes to some of the possibilities for that particular aria or arias that we've been working on. What are some steps that you think we can take to, one, develop our taste so that we know, for instance, when we were talking, that, this is very different to this, is very different to this, Yeah,
I mean, this and this is not,
yeah.
This. That's,
Well,
study it. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
As far as with our
as
new...
far as I'm concerned, this is different to this is different to this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So where my question is going is for our other pieces that we are starting to work on, what are the ways that, or what are some of the steps that we can start taking to think about these things? I think one of the most valuable tools is either a mirror or a camera, because you can of course see yourself. But...
Yeah, I mean, well, again, pay attention, and not just to you, but pay attention to others, and see how do you read the body.
Okay.
What does this body express and how? Watch performances. There is, I mean, now we have this incredible access to almost everything that's ever been filmed in our pocket. So analyze it. Find someone that you think is really powerful and strong, that you feel, okay, and watch it. So go ahead.
And also analyze the world around you.
Yes.
How people revolve around you.
That's what I mean. Watch other people
Not only in movies, in real life.
in everyday life. Absolutely, absolutely in everyday life. I mean, body language is an instinctual thing we do, and that we react to. So we know exactly what the body expresses of the people that we're facing with on a subconscious level. We have to, because that's a survival mode.
Yeah.
So we have to. Yeah, again, paying attention. And again, nothing can be arbitrary. So when you're on stage, like I said, nothing can be casual. So you have to stylize it. You have to make a decision. That's what creation means. You have to be specific. Make it specific. And it's really every single moment. Listen to the music. The music tells you when there's a shift. Really listen to the music, not just your vocal line. Listen to the music. Say, what is happening? What does the music tell me? What's happening? And again, here I would say the music announces the emotion. It comes through. The emotion doesn't come before the music. It doesn't read that way. And if you do it that way, and performers do it that way, we won't understand it. And it will look forced.
Okay.
Yeah, Shannon, and no, you were first. So okay.
Oh, okay. I was just thinking, despite the opening question, but on the last commitment, you were saying somebody has told you to be on the stage, that you belong there and stuff. But how do you know when you're you don't belong there anymore, kind of? When you really lose touch with the joy, try to find it. Yeah. And if you feel that the stress and the pain outweighs it, then it's the time to consider.
It's balance.
Yeah, there has to be a balance. You have to somehow, see, I will tell you this. You have to feel the joy on stage.
Yeah.
If on stage you feel like you're completely frightened and you can't breathe and all that, and if that happens continuously and becomes the norm, maybe there's another way of staying connected to this art form without exposing yourself that feels so fragile that the technique can't even help you anymore. Yeah, and everybody's asking themselves that question. I mean, most people, I ask myself that question. And I was very comfortable on stage, but I wanted to do things, I realized I reached my ceiling. I wanted to do things that I couldn't do technically. And I was too lazy to really acquire the technique it would have taken. I knew what it would take, but that's not the life that I was willing to live. So I realized, okay, I learned a lot. But I actually, and these weeks have been enforcing that in a very beautiful way. I think all of this was just preparation to what I'm doing here. I can do this for weeks, hours, I never get tired. I feel quite safe in believing that what I have to say, what I say is true. Always willing to change my mind, but I think I'm able to make my point, and I don't miss performing at all. It was fun, you know, it was fun, but so, and that's okay. I mean, we are shapeshifters. You go through the process. Every now and then, you may feel like I need to change my life, and that's extremely liberating also. So, but on the other hand, the investment of really going into it, and in my own way, I did that. I was just in a different world, but I did perform for 15 years. I don't have any regrets. I didn't waste my time. I learned everything that, well, that's why I'm able to stand right here now.
This is a more practical question.
Sure.
Do you have suggestions about how to reconcile the artistry when you're in situations working with directors, for example, whose philosophies don't necessarily align, or when you're being asked to do things on stage that maybe contradict some of those artistry?
Yeah.
What do you have any suggestions for working through those conflicts?
It's hard because on one hand it will be demanded that you deliver yourself as material to the director. And it's hard when you're not in a position to choose your director, when you have to take the opportunity. I would say hopefully you have a director you have an actual dialogue with, that he doesn't come with a finished product that he's just plopping onto you. That's a bad director. A good director has a dialogue with his performers and evolves it with them. But yeah, unfortunately that might happen, and then you have to ask yourself, is this a career move that is really worth it? Because you don't want to get hurt up there. You don't want to feel coerced into doing something that really goes against your values or your artistry. Then, yeah, you have to make a choice. It's really going to be different each time. But I would always try to, if he doesn't create the dialogue, try to create it, and try to create it with a goodwill. So you don't go into the offensive. What you're doing is you're creating an opening for him, because hopefully any director would actually kind of want that dialogue. And if they're not able to opening it, you know, creating the opening, be the one who takes that initiative. You might be surprised.